folks, it's Eris, Mariner Sales at iCast, and I'm really pleased to be here with Luther Cifers. Luther has been instrumental in the way this industry has grown, from my point of view anyway, and I thought we'd sit down and spend a moment and kind of figure out what goes on in his head when he creates all these crazy ideas and helps us all go forward with our kayaking fishing. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Eris. Appreciate it, man.
So, I know that I started, in a way that I would have never thought would have turned out into where I am now, and you have definitely started and grown well past anything that I would have ever thought I could do, and certainly you're extremely successful in the way you innovate for this product. How did you start? Where did you start?
So we started, it was me and a friend of mine, glued a light into the end of a PVC pipe. I mean, that's back in 2009. That's pretty much how it started.
I think I remember that toy.
Yeah, the busy pole.
That's right. When you first came out with that, I thought nobody's going to pay that much money for a light on a stick.
Yeah.
And they did.
Well, the problem back then was it was battery life.
Right.
So you had a product out there that would, it was a good product, but it would only last for 8 hours. And there weren't any LEDs at the time for the light pole. So I think solving that and putting it up high where it was above the paddler's head, a lot of people saw the need for it. There was some DIY stuff going on.
There was a legal need for it. We were all being illegal till you invented that thing.
So, I guess that's what we've always done, is identify a need and then try to figure out how to solve it. So it started by identifying that first need.
Wow, gluing a flashlight to the top of a PVC pole. Well, your product line didn't stay small for very long. It seems to me like I remember starting off with that project and then you being able to evolve into other things and other things and other things. And then it started coming really quickly. At what point did you figure out how you could innovate on any kind of a scale like you do now?
Well, that really came down more to resources than anything. Number one, being surrounded by a great team. We've got an incredible team at YakAttack now that is developing these products all the time, every day. It's all they do. And then just having that other resource that you have to deal with in business is having the cash flow, and early on, being the same guy that's paying the bills, is the same guy that's ordering the paper towels, is the same guy that's designing the products, that's taking out the trash, that's cleaning the machines. It was just a availability of resources, whether it was the resource of my own time or resources of cash, or the other big limitation was equipment. Mm-hmm. But little by little, one machine at a time, one product at a time, one customer at a time, and one, team member at a time, we've now built it to where we have a machine that's pretty effective at making new stuff and making good stuff.
Well, I just heard you say team member, and one thing that's always struck me about you and the way you run your business and present yourself in your business is the collaboration that you seek out. There are a lot of people that don't seek out collaboration. You do, at least you have when we've been able to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I realized a long time ago that if you don't have collaboration, you are the weakest link in the chain every single time. And so I've tried to build a team that's empowered to be creative. When you get a bunch of people who design stuff together, a lot of times you get egos, and I've been in the engineering field for most of my career, so I know the personality type really well, and you get a lot of egos, and you get a lot of whose idea was it, and you get a lot of what's incredible about what we have at YakAttack is it's void of any of that. Literally void of it.
You're very fortunate. Yeah.
We're just a bunch of people that care about the same thing and also care about each other. So the collaborative process for us is more about building one another or each other's ideas or whatever it is, building it up to be the best version of itself it can be. And I'd say in a way I took that for granted. I've only recently realized how special that dynamic that we have really is. And it's the reason that we can do a lot of the things that we do and that the solutions turn out as good as they are, because You don't get bogged down with the egos. You don't get bogged down with the things that keep ideas from being the best version of themselves. You know, if I have an idea and Dan says, I think that's dumb, I'm going to listen every single time.
Probably a reason he said that. Yeah.
There's a reason he said that. And on the flip side, if he's got a different idea or vice versa, we're always just looking for that objective, what's the best solution we can do. And you know, the Omega rod holder and the lock and load system is a great example of that. You know, I worked on that thing for close to a year. Hit some limitations that I couldn't get past, particularly with the motion of the lock and load system.
Which is a great system, by the way, for those of you that don't know anything about that. Well,
and you look at it now and it's really simple and it's really intuitive, but going from a void to that wasn't so simple, and I can tell you it wasn't intuitive. But it went from basically, here Dan, I can't do this, to Dan getting it to a point that it began to work, but then I had to step back in as the adjudicator to say, not ready, and we bounced things back and forth. But through that, and that's probably the closest we've ever came, and Dan's a great guy, so he didn't really say it, but it's probably the closest he ever came to being like, look, dude, if you want to do this, you do it. You know, because we scrapped tooling at least twice. Because once we got to, it just wasn't where we wanted it to be. But what we all learned through that process was that by working together, keeping our mind on the customer, what are they going to experience when they get this? Yeah, that second version would have been okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have gotten too many complaints, but it wasn't what it is today. So yeah, it's having the right team pointed at the same vision, caring about the same things is probably the most important thing that we have.
Well, I got to tell you, the attitude that you've shared with me and your thoughts about how no wonder you're successful at what you're doing here, and you are. We actually look forward to seeing new products come out. Every time they come out, we're expecting them to be absolutely wonderful, which is probably, it's a gift and it's a curse at the same time, because that's a lot of pressure to be putting on you.
It is a lot of pressure.
And I know you've had a couple of things come out that weren't quite what you had hoped they would be, but what I really appreciate about working with you is how quickly you take care of it, how important it is to you to make sure that you get it right at whatever point you have to address that situation.
Yeah.
Almost all the times it's up front, but when it's not, you're really quick to take care of it.
Yeah, the Omega rod holder, I had a pinch point.
Yep.
That one was tough because we waited so long without a rod holder. Dealers had waited from the previous to iCast, and then we were going to ship in October, and then we were going to ship in November, and then we were going to ship in December. Finally, we got these things out, I think, January, and immediately got the feedback from some very trusted dealers.
I lost some blood on that one.
That there might be an issue. And then pulled all that product back. Right away it's like, what are we going to do about this? And then we figured out how to solve it.
Yeah. And it was a simple solution.
In the end, it was.
It really was. Yeah.
And then we had tooling changes and all that stuff, and then ended up not actually launching that product until March.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was the right product. From March till the end of that year, the sales of the Mega Rod Holder eclipsed all of the sales we had of every rod holder we had ever sold combined. So it was worth it to get it right.
Well, and we love that rod holder. It's one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business, for sure.
Thank you.
Now, we're sitting here where you started with YakAttack, and I'm looking across the aisle here at Bonafide, which is something else you got to be pretty proud about. You have reimagined what the hull of a kayak ought to look like, at least in most people's eyes.
Yeah.
I know that I've paddled every one of your boats and appreciate subtle differences between each of them. I mean, there's no one boat that's perfect for everything.
Yeah.
Boats have their specific spots. Tell us how you decided to get into kayaking business. I mean, that's kind of a jump for a guy in the parts business.
Yeah, I mean, it's the customers. Customers have been asking for a long time. I think people often made the mistake of thinking we were bigger than we were. So they're like, why don't you just go start a kayak
You can do it.
Yeah,
you
just
can
go do it.
Yeah.
But just a lot of different things, industry dynamics, just a lot of different things made the time right. We were, as a business, YakAttack was able to be reasonably self-sufficient. I'm involved with the product side and the consumer and dealer facing stuff, but operations now is very self-sufficient. So yeah, we decided to make the leap there and do that. And then again, it was the same thing. It was like, what are we going to bring to the table? If we can't bring something to the table that's compelling or that's worth having in the industry, then let's not do this. And it was funny. I mean, the initial discussions with the product development team was, well, we don't necessarily need to do R&D on hulls because we know how to do hulls. And we don't have, and by the way, we don't have time, which we didn't. It was just a really compressed timeline. But I insisted. I was like, guys, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna see. And maybe we won't find anything, but if we do, then that's going to be the reason that we're successful. And we did. It was really cool, man. It was really low budget, but it was probably some of the most comprehensive measuring and analysis of data I would say that's probably ever went into a fishing kayak. We measured stability. We developed a way to measure stability. We developed a way to measure hull resistance.
So what you're telling me now is when you come out with a design, it's not a surprise to you that it's going to have this kind of volume, this kind of stability, this kind of... You've actually got the metrics and the numbers to have a pretty fine idea of where to start.
With the SS127, we knew how we stacked up in terms of stability before we built the first boat. And we could see it on a curve. We could see secondary stability on a curve. So we knew exactly what we had. Since then, now we know the general geometry of the hull, so we don't have to repeat that entire process every time. It's just been a matter of, taking that whole shape, that specific hull design, and contouring it and moving things around based on the type of boat, the type of performance you're trying to get. But yeah, it was absolutely instrumental. I mean, some of the first things we tried didn't work.
I think I saw a pile of molds or something like that at one time in a photo you shared.
Maybe, yeah.
Or maybe it's just a pile of hulls, I don't know.
Maybe the fiberglass molds that we used to make some of these, and some of the first ones we just cut them out of foam, so it was just a lot, like I said, fairly low budget, but really comprehensive, and it led us, and that's, again, you have to, I think if you ever lose the point that you think there's something else to be discovered, then you're going to spend a lot of time on that beaten path. And, we want to get off the beaten path every opportunity we get because that's where everything undiscovered is. That's where all the good stuff is. It's a harder road, and you need a pretty good compass, and you need a machete, and you need a little bit of resilience, and you can't be afraid of snakes and briars and thistles and thorns, but that's where the good stuff is. So, it's a harder road that we travel, I think, than what a lot of companies do. And even people who work with us who have a lot of experience in other industries, on both YakAttack and Bonafide, I think sometimes they're surprised at what it takes, to do what we do, but it's something we can always be proud of. And it's something that, I think the team has the reputation it has because we've done those things, and there's a lot of reward in that for everybody. There's a lot of pride.
Well, you take a different road a lot. Recently, you took a different road in a accessory for your kayaks. I'll tell you that as soon as we got a flex wing, you sent us a prototype. I threw it on the back of one of my boats, and I took it out and I paddled it. I got to tell you, I always thought your boats paddled well because I think that your boats really do paddle well, especially if any reasonable amount of paddle technique is used, But I thought they paddled well even at a low aspect. But when I put those flex wings on, the boats became instantly more user-friendly. And most people would have gone with a rigid skeg or something else. How did you come across this flexible, almost rubbery concept for solving that, perceived problem?
One thing that's interesting, so one of the things that was very difficult to test was, we've got these long pontoons, we got really steep chines, and we knew the boat was going to track reasonably well. We didn't know how well it would turn. So I think we ended up with a little bit softer stern than maybe what that boat needed. Probably needed a little bit more keel back there, which for certain conditions, it's great.
Benefit, yeah.
And it's like, it is the kayak condition. It's every strength over here is a weakness over here, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a balance that fell somewhere. But for our target customer, a lot of the environments that they were paddling in, they would like that center, that average, that perfect, it's best in these conditions for that needle to be moved over a little bit.
Yeah.
And even when and believe it or not, even when we first got this boat out of the mold and looked at it and saw those twin keels back there and the twin skid plates, even back then I remember remarking to the designer, we could tune this boat's performance. We've got this opportunity with very little surface area because we have 2 places for it to tune this boat's performance. And then we kind of never talked about it again. And then when we started getting customers that were saying, man, in the wind. And it also had a lot to do with how heavy the paddler was and how the boat was loaded. Heavier paddlers don't have the issue nearly as much. And people who end up with a lot of weight in the stern don't have the issue as much because you get the stern of the boat planted.
Right.
But if you're riding really light or the stern's riding really light and you get a wind, we kind of push that stern around. So, we started thinking about ways to address that. And of course, the intuitive, obvious solution is a rudder. And so the customer said, we want a rudder.
Yeah.
And we should have had a rudder in the beginning. That was a mistake on all of our part, but mostly mine. Because there's that guy who makes the decisions at the end of the day. He's responsible.
Yeah, the boat can only fall so far up.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it's all the way.
Yes. Well, and it's my job to prioritize, and I did a poor job prioritizing there. But the silver lining is that because of that delay with the rudder, we stumbled upon this idea of why don't we try to do something in the stern to control this? Because the other thing is really what it does is it makes the boat bimodal. So now you can tune the boat, like I'm going to be in these conditions, well I want the flex weaves on there, or I'm going to be in these conditions, I don't. But unlike a rudder, you don't have this mechanical contraption, it doesn't cost $200.
I was getting ready to say a $30 fix over a $200 fix, good job.
And I would say a $30 tune.
There you go.
Because the reality is the quote unquote fix, what it does is it moves the needle. So now you're not performing as well in other conditions that the boat naturally performs. So
really valid point. Yeah.
So it's kind of a tune. It's the ability to tune the performance of the boat for what you're doing. But there's less moving parts. There's less things that can go wrong. There's less places to snag a line, or to hang a lure. So, and the other thing is, I would have personally felt really bad if we had dropped a $200 rudder and then stumbled across this idea, and after everybody bought rudders, then gave them a $30 solution that to a lot of people is preferred. So, I'm a believer in the hand of Providence. I'm not sure that wasn't a little bit of the hand of Providence there that said, hold on, you don't know what you're doing, but don't worry, I'm gonna
give you a hint.
Yeah. That first rudder it's never gonna make it to market. So it really did. It opened up a window of opportunity there. And man, when we tried those first ones, we didn't really know what to expect. We were hoping to tighten up that stern a little bit, but paddling a 107 and it's like, okay, I'm gonna paddle in a circle and then I'm gonna stop paddling and then the boat just glides straight. It's just unimaginable. You can still turn the boat, but when you stop paddling, it just goes straight.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's happening there that, you get some kind of, crab walking or whatever when you're paddling. Well, the flex wings are responsive. They're flexible, so they're responsive. The harder you push them, the more they tend to dig. So on those powerful paddle strokes, it's also giving you some forward momentum that would normally be lost to this. So it turned out having all these other cool benefits that we didn't necessarily expect. But I can't imagine a better way to tune the performance of the boat. And that's the other thing is there are people who, so one thing that's really surprising is how many Bonafide owners are first-time kayak owners. That blows my mind. They went right to the most premium right now in paddle kayaks in terms of price, I think in terms of features. How we reach that customer, I don't even completely know how we reach so many of them, but they don't all have experience paddling, as much experience paddling.
Right.
So, being able to give them that solution it's just super cool, man. Something we're really proud of.
Well, and you segue me into something else, because most of the world would have thought, I bet you the very next thing Luther does is create a drive system for his kayaks, because that's the way the whole industry is going. Instead, the whole industry is going that way, or at least half of it is, and it's a really crowded market. There's some good things, there's some not so good things coming out to propel kayaks. Instead, you guys decided to go for a combo, all around, wreck, fun, grab and go kind of a boat. How did your head get turned that direction?
Well, again, I think as this sport has transitioned more and more to, let's say mainstream, the messaging has been a large part, I think, and the availability of the right products has been a large part of what has steered it in the direction that it's gone. And, I'm a big fan of customers having choices. I don't think customers should necessarily choose us, and I don't think they should necessarily choose something else. What I do want is for the customer to have the choices that highlight what's really great about our sport. And I feel like that's one that was really overlooked, is something that's, that's easy to just get on the water, that paddles really, really well. I don't think there's a boat
really well.
Yeah, I don't think there's a boat that's made that paddles that fast and that well, and you can just jump up and stand without worrying about tipping over. I mean, I think we really struck a nerve with that boat. Now, we knew that it would take, and it's actually done pretty well, but it's going to take at least a year. That's about how long the Carbon Pro took, about a year. We've launched a lot of firsts, and it usually takes about a year, but kayak anglers are starting to realize now the benefits of that boat. And part of it is that it's easy to get on the water. The other thing is, there are no scuppers. And people are like, well, yeah, but it's not self-bailing. What if I tip it over? And I'm like, when's the last time anybody tipped a Bonafide? Like, you got to be trying. So it's not
that low center of gravity. It's unlikely.
Very difficult.
Oh, man.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
And then you've still got flotation. You've got other things. So it's not. It's more of a perceived risk in most conditions than an actual one. But again, we want the customer to have the choice. And it's the other reason you've probably seen us using this hashtag Proud to Paddle.
I like it, by the way.
Thanks, man. Look, I started in a pedal drive. I like pedal drives, particularly for certain conditions. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
But once I learned how to paddle, and this is way before I got into the kayak business, once I learned how to paddle, I quit using my pedal drives, except for certain conditions. I prefer to paddle. So I think it's important as an industry that, not that we pull or sway consumers this way or that, but that we inform them. And I don't want paddling to get lost. I don't think it's healthy for our industry if paddling gets lost. To be honest with you, I don't think we're serving our customer very well if paddling gets lost. So, the joys of paddling, what it is, and, I'm not going to, because I didn't ask his permission, I'm not going to use his name, but in the Bonafide booth a little while ago, I just had a guy who's a war vet, a best-selling author, that I didn't even know he owned a Bonafide, that walked into our booth and told me the powerful impact that paddling a Bonafide kayak has had on him personally, and gave me a copy of his...
You were carrying his book when we walked in, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm good. I like reading books, especially books on leadership, because that's something that, as the companies grow, is becoming more and more important. So I'm looking forward to reading that. But, paddling is special, man. It's not just, nothing bothers me worse than to hear it framed up like, well, if you can afford it, you should get a pedal drive. If not, then... Not that I don't think pedal drives should be presented as a compelling alternative.
They are a compelling alternative.
100%. And there are some conditions they can't be beat.
Right.
But let's not, as the stewards of this sport, let's not deprive our customers of honest choices. If we're the ones who know and we have the experience and we neglect to tell them, well, here are the benefits and the joys of paddling, and here are the benefits and the joys of pedaling, But they're two different things. It's not like you do one unless you can't afford it and then you do the other. It's silly talk.
Well, and they're two separate tools too.
100%. Look, at some point in time, this question gets asked about 1,400 times a day. At some point in time, will we have a pedal drive? Maybe. I'd say at some point in time, using that term very loosely, likely.
Yeah.
But not for the sake of chasing the herd, not for the sake of following the narrative.
Yeah.
Because, to me, the truth resonates, and I know there's a message that's getting lost, and that consumers to some degree are being deprived of what paddling is and the joys of paddling. And I have a lot of faith in reality. And the reality is people love paddling, and people love paddling and fishing. A lot of people who are getting into the sport, I think, haven't even really had the opportunity to appreciate that.
Well, there's no doubt I got drawn into this thing absolutely enjoying paddling for paddling's sake. The solitude, the one with the area that you're in, the opportunity to take in every little thing. I mean, it's just, I actually turn my phone off. I do take it with me because there may be an emergency, but when I'm on the water, whether I'm windsurfing, sailing, paddling, I turn that thing off. And I enjoy the moment that I'm in, because what you and I do, and frankly what most people do, what most of you people do, is it's a on 24/7 all the time now. We've got pressures from our jobs, our families, our personal lives, whatsoever, and they're right in your pocket or they're in your hand all the time. But I use that as an opportunity personally to kind of recharge and to recenter and to and I need to remember to do that more, by the way.
Don't we all?
No doubt about it. It's not without some pride that you haven't shared your company with your family. I mean, I'm noticing now that I'm seeing influences from your family members in this company, and from what I can tell, it's been it's got to be fun for you, but it's certainly been a step up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no doubt. We've got a really talented team, and I'm really proud that some of that talent, I watched them grow up. If anybody who's seen all the new packaging from YakAttack,
It's gorgeous.
At the time,
take a shot of that stuff over there, man. I'll tell you. Yeah.
We had just got done paying a consulting company a lot of money to develop some packaging concepts.
Sure.
And they came back, and it was what we had at iCast maybe 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember those little thin boxes.
Little bag.
It was unusable.
Yeah.
It was unusable.
Unusable.
It was unusable. We didn't use anything from that project.
Wow.
So then it was like, okay, we're not exactly stacked. We don't have stacks of cash in the back room.
And we can't try this 2 or 3
So we already
times.
spent what we had for this. So
Right.
we just, it's like, well, we're going to have to wait till next season. And my daughter came to me one day, and she was just working in production at the time. And she was like, do you mind if I play around with the packaging? And I'm like, oh, you want to do some arts and crafts? That's cool.
Go ahead, honey. Yeah.
And look, she's a really smart kid. I knew that I could take her seriously, and I knew I didn't have super high expectations, but what's the harm?
Yeah.
She had learned how to use our CAD software, which has this functionality where you can fold up sheet metal. Well, one of our guys taught her how to use the laser, and she started folding this packaging up in CAD and laying it out into flat patterns, and just kept trying different iterations until she had these things that you see
Holy cow.
on the wall. I'm serious. And even had the laser. Yeah, I was like, how are you folding that so neatly? She's like, well, I just take the laser and stitch these little lines, and it always wants to fold there. And I'm like, so, and then she worked with the graphic artist. She did the hand layups and worked with the graphic artist to get all that work done, worked with the vendors. And this is at a time where, when I first told her, can you reach out to the vendor? She's like, Dad, I don't really like talking on the phone. Now, she's
okay with it, you're thinking.
Incredible. Huh? Incredible. So she went from that to, or from just working in manufacturing to all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is your job now. Do this with all the products. And then started working for John in marketing, started to learn a lot from him. And now, a lot of the video work that you see, a lot of photography that you see, all that stuff is coming from her and others. We've got other kids that help part-time and, have have learned how to do things, and now they've got budding developing careers. So it's cool, man. It's one of the joys of, and I know you know this, one of the joys of owning, one of the frustrations of owning a business is trying to get everyone pointed in the right direction. But one of the joys is those same people that sometimes trying to get that team to work the way that you'd like for it to can be frustrating. When it works, it's just worth it.
It's magic. It's absolutely magic.
It is, and watching people and watching them grow and develop opportunities, and the kinds of opportunities that we've developed in our companies, I think are really unique. We've got some success stories that, I mean, a couple that are probably worthy of a documentary. I mean, seriously, people who in a very short amount of time made leaps and bounds that I've never experienced or seen in my career. Because of the environment that they're in, and obviously because of their own God-given talents, but of being in an environment where there's a healthy balance of being encouraged, being given opportunity, being pushed,
Sure.
and people consider it a dirty word, but in some cases, the constructive criticism. I had a guy that he wanted to lead our technical services team. There was a vacancy, he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, if you're willing to go through the process, I will do my part to get you there. But it's going to be, we don't have time to coddle.
Yeah.
We don't have years to get, but I will tell you every time you make a mistake, I will tell you every time there's an area that you need to read a book or do some research. If you'll do it, I think 3 months later, I was able to leave him on his own. And what he's done now and the team that he's built has done, it's cool, man. It makes it really worth it.
Sounds kind of like good leadership to me, and a good pool of talent to work with.
A good pool of talent, and like I said, maybe a little help from time to time.
We all need help. So you've been so generous with your time. I just want to touch on one more thing. You brought up that you had a veteran come in and share some of his life with you and some of his experience with you. And I know you've been a supporter of a group that we very much are in support of and enjoy being a part of. Matter of fact, I get a lot more out of helping Heroes on the Water than I feel I give them. It's almost cheating, When we walked in here, I had an opportunity to get on a boat that I'd been trying, and the guys from Heroes on the Water walked up and started talking to me about it. And as I'm telling them, if there's anything I can do to help you guys out in any way, please let me know. They said, "Is this on tape?" I said, And I know that you've been involved in that organization too. Tell me how you got in that.
I mean, I met Jim Dolan, 2010, something like that. And, we just believed in what they're doing. Heard really early on some really strong testimonials that just, with organizations, especially new ones, you never know. I mean, people try things all the time, and sometimes it works and sometimes
Sure.
it doesn't. But the testimonials coming out of the work that they were doing, it was just undeniable, the impact.
He would tell tales that would bring me to tears. I mean,
Yeah.
And then they weren't tales, of course. They were experiences,
Yeah.
they were realities. Just a really powerful presentation.
So, it's been cool, and I guess I feel like most of us as Americans, we really appreciate our veterans and what they do for us and what they've done for us, especially ones that, may come home with scars, from those experiences. But really, all of them, the challenge is, what do you do? What can I do? What can Eris do? And what I really appreciate about Heroes on the Water is for those of us in this industry that know them and that, have some way that we can become involved, it is that conduit of a place to channel what we want, the love and support that we want to show and the appreciation that we want to show. Without the conduit, it's kind of hard to know how to do that. So to me, that's the service that the organization has provided to the rest of us.
Right.
Is giving us that conduit, because otherwise, all the best intentions of the world, if they're not exercised, they don't do a lot of good.
So guys, if you've never heard of Heroes on the Water, I challenge you or encourage you to go to heroesonthewater.org. your time would be well spent. I think you would be as happy with your investment in time as I have been. And thank you for your efforts.
Thanks, Harris.
Thank you for your help in growing the industry. I've always loved being a part of this industry. I hope I continue to grow with it, and thank you for giving us an avenue to do it.
Thanks, man.
Folks,
it's been a privilege.
This has been Luther Cifers with YakAttack and Bonafide. I'm Eris with Mariner Sales. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us, and we look forward to talking to you soon. We're wearing these lays, by the way, because Luther's throwing a party over here. His daughter is singing in his booth, and we're getting ready to go and share a beer and enjoy it.
Let's do that.
From iCast, take care, folks.